I don't think I'll ever forget the sound of her laughter that night. It was the kind of laugh that used to be ours, private, soft, the kind that slipped out when you're with someone who just gets you. But this time, it wasn't for me. It came from our back porch. I had gotten off work early, hoping to surprise her. I sell security systems, not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills and then some. We've been trying to save for a second car and maybe start planning for a kid next year. That was the plan anyway. But that laugh? That was the first crack in the glass. I pulled into the driveway around 6:40 p.m. Her car was there, and there was another one, a gray Toyota Camry I didn't recognize. Nothing fancy, normal. That's what made it worse, somehow. I wasn't expecting anything, I swear to God I wasn't. I was just going to walk in, kiss her on the neck like I always do, and ask what she wanted for dinner. But instead, I stood there, keys in hand, just listening. She was out back with someone. I crept around the side of the house, feeling stupid for sneaking around my own property. But the closer I got, the more I realized something was off. Her voice, it was lighter. Not the tired, worn-out voice I'd gotten used to these past few months. It had life in it. It was the voice she used back when we first started dating. Then he spoke. I didn't recognize the voice. It wasn't her brother. It wasn't one of her cousins or coworkers. He laughed too. A low, confident laugh, and then he said something about how she still had that curve in her smile. That was all I needed. I didn't confront her, not then. I backed away and walked around to the front door like nothing had happened. I opened it loud enough for her to hear. She came in from the porch a minute later, cheeks a little flushed, saying she thought I had to work late. I told her plans changed. She didn't mention him. I didn't ask. And for the next few days, I pretended nothing happened. But in my head, everything had changed. She started locking her phone. She started wearing perfume to quick errands. She started working out again, which I supported, but it wasn't for her health. I could tell. It was for how she looked in leggings and tight tops that I hadn't seen since our honeymoon phase. I didn't want to be that guy. The paranoid, insecure husband. But the evidence wasn't in my head, it was in her behavior. In the way she stopped kissing me on the lips. In the way she smiled at me like I was a stranger walking past her in the grocery store. That night on the porch? I didn't say anything, but I kept everything. Every word, every sound, like a recording stuck on replay. And something else happened that night too. Something inside me shifted. I made a silent promise. If this was what it looked like, if she was cheating on me, I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. I'd gather proof. Not just suspicions or weird feelings, but actual, solid evidence. And when the moment came, I'd make sure she remembered it for the rest of her life. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there in the dark next to her, listening to the steady rhythm of her breath, wondering how long it had been since she last breathed like that because of me. She curled away from me in bed, like always. Used to be we couldn't fall asleep unless our legs touched or her head was on my chest. Now it was like we were just two people renting the same mattress. At 3:17 a.m., I got up, walked to the living room, and sat in the dark with a notebook in my lap. I didn't know what I was doing exactly, part of me felt crazy. But I started writing things down. The gray Camry, the laugh, the perfume that wasn't for me, the locked phone, the gym bag that hadn't been used in 2 years suddenly sitting by the door 3 nights a week. When she finally stirred in the morning, I was back in bed, pretending to sleep. She kissed me on the cheek like she used to when we first got married, and for a moment, it almost broke me. It was like a ghost of who she used to be showed up for a second, just long enough to remind me what I was about to lose. But it felt practiced, like she was covering her tracks. That Saturday, she told me she had a girls' brunch with some of her old coworkers. Normally I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but when she left the house dressed like she was going to a photo shoot, low-cut top, tight jeans, heels I hadn't seen since our 3rd anniversary, I felt something cold settle in my chest. I told her to have fun. I watched her pull out of the driveway. I waited 10 minutes, and then I got in my truck and followed. I didn't tail her like in a movie. I gave plenty of distance. Enough not to be noticed. I knew every street in our town, so it wasn't hard. She drove across town, took a left toward downtown, then pulled into the parking lot of a little boutique hotel near the river. She parked, and then he showed up. Gray Camry, same one from before. He got out, smiled, and walked straight up to her like they'd done this 100 times. No hesitation, no nerves. She didn't even look around. She just smiled, touched his arm, and they walked into the hotel lobby together. I didn't follow them in. I didn't need to. There was only one reason they'd meet like that at a hotel on a Saturday morning. She wasn't going to brunch. And she sure as hell wasn't thinking about me while she did her hair and makeup that morning. I sat in my truck for 2 hours. I don't remember most of that time. I just stared at the hotel entrance, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding me together. At one point, I laughed. I don't even know why. It wasn't funny. Maybe it was just that I couldn't cry yet. When she came out, she looked different. Not messy, not guilty, just calm, like someone who'd had a nice nap. The guy walked her back to her car, kissed her like it was the most natural thing in the world, and then got in his own and drove off. She sat in her car for a few minutes after that. Maybe she was checking her reflection. Maybe texting him, or deleting texts. I drove away before she saw me. I didn't want to risk her suspecting anything. When she came home that afternoon, she brought flowers, lilies, my favorite. She said the brunch ended early, and she thought of me. She was playing the part so well I almost admired it. Almost. I told her I appreciated the gesture, and I meant it. Not because I believed her, but because it confirmed something for me. She was lying straight to my face, and she thought she was getting away with it. That night, after she went to sleep, I sat in the kitchen and ordered 2 things. A GPS tracker for her car, and a camera small enough to hide an event. I wasn't going to confront her with guesses. I was going to bury her with the truth. By Monday morning, the GPS tracker had arrived, a tiny magnetic thing no bigger than a deck of cards. You don't realize how easy it is to track someone until you're the one doing it. Makes you wonder how many people out there are walking through life blind to the fact that someone's watching. I waited until she was in the shower, then slipped outside and crawled under her car. I stuck it just behind the rear axle, wiped my hands on my jeans, and came back inside like nothing happened. By the time she came down for coffee, I was reading the paper, playing the same old version of myself she'd been slowly drifting away from. That whole week I watched her phone like a hawk. Not hers, the clone. I'd set up a mirror phone, synced with her iCloud, something I'd learned about on a tech forum the week before. The process was messy and technical, but it worked. Every text, every photo, every location, I saw it all. And I wish I could say it gave me clarity. But what it really gave me was pain. It started with little things. Messages that said, "You make me feel like myself again," and "I can't stop thinking about Sunday." At first, she didn't use a name, just emojis and vague phrasing. But eventually, a contact popped up, E. I knew exactly who he was the second I saw the name. Eric, one of the guys from her gym. I remembered shaking his hand once, about 6 months ago. She introduced us at some charity run. He had that clean-cut look, the kind of guy who smiled too confidently. I didn't like him then. Now I knew why. Tuesday night, I watched her text him while I sat across from her at dinner. We were eating spaghetti. She twirled noodles with one hand and messaged him with the other under the table. I could see the texts roll in on my clone screen as she laughed at something he wrote. "You wear red like you're trying to kill me." She was wearing red that night. She didn't even flinch when she looked at me. Just kept chewing, smiling, asking me how my day was. That was the moment it hit me. She wasn't even conflicted anymore. And that hurt more than anything. Not that she cheated, not that she lied, but that it didn't seem to bother her. The guilt. The thing I'd been waiting to see in her eyes, it was gone. If it was ever there at all. By Thursday, the camera came in. Tiny lens, wireless, motion activated. I installed it while she was at her yoga class, which, according to the GPS, was just her car parked in the same hotel lot from before. I drilled a small hole into the vent in our living room, the one that faces the couch, and nestled the camera inside. I didn't think she'd ever be dumb enough to bring him here. But I needed to be sure. I needed to know everything. The more I uncovered, the more numb I became. Like I wasn't even inside my own life anymore. I'd go through the motions, eat dinner, mow the lawn, talk about bills, but I wasn't really there. I was living in the silence between her lies, watching her play a part in a story I never agreed to. Friday night, the texts took a turn. She messaged Eric. He has a work trip coming up soon. Whole weekend. I'll have the place to myself. He replied. Might finally see what your bed feels like then. That was it. Something inside me went still. Not angry, not sad, just quiet. She didn't know it, but she had just scheduled her own unmasking. I left Friday evening with a packed overnight bag, 2 button-downs, and exactly 0 business to take care of. There was no work trip. I just needed her to believe there was. She kissed me on the cheek before I left. Told me to text when I land. I promised I would. And for once, I meant it. I was going to text her something that would hit a hell of a lot harder than a boarding pass. I drove 2 towns over to a little motel off the interstate. Cash only. No ID required. The kind of place you go to disappear for a while. I parked my truck behind the building, checked in, and set up the laptop. The camera I'd hidden in our living room streamed straight to my screen. It was almost poetic. Watching the home I paid for, the furniture I built, the space we were supposed to grow old in, become the stage for her betrayal. It didn't take long for her to make her move. She waited maybe 2 hours after I left. The lights dimmed. She lit a candle. Then, there was a knock. Eric. He came in casual, like he'd been there before. Like this was normal. She greeted him with a kiss, not a nervous one, not some hesitant first-time thing. A full, slow, familiar kiss. I felt my hands tighten around the laptop, but I didn't flinch. This was what I came for. He dropped his bag near the couch. She poured wine. They laughed about something. She whispered in his ear. He touched her waist like it was his. I watched until I couldn't anymore. Not because it hurt. By that point, I was past pain. What I felt was something colder. Cleaner. The part of me that once needed answers? It was gone. I had everything I needed. I hit record. Let the camera roll. Let her have her night. While they got comfortable in my house, I was writing an email to myself, a digital timestamp. I listed everything. The texts, the camera feed, her words, his, all documented, all clean. I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to scream, or throw things, or confront her in a moment of weakness. No, that would make me look emotional, unstable. Instead, I was going to prepare her fall, one calm, measured step at a time. Because this wasn't just about the cheating. It was about the gaslighting. The fake smiles. The flowers she brought home to throw me off. The lies layered so thick I almost doubted my own instincts. That's what betrayal really is. Not just the act, but the erosion of your grip on reality. The next morning, she sent me a text. Hope your meetings go well today. Miss you. Red heart. I stared at the screen for a long time. And then I replied, you'll want to enjoy your weekend. It's going to be your last one in that house. No response for 15 minutes. Then. What does that mean? I didn't answer. I just turned off my phone, closed the laptop, and leaned back in the creaky motel chair. Let her sit with that. Let her feel the silence I'd lived in for months. I drove back Sunday night, just after dark. I could have waited. I could have let her stew in the silence longer. But I needed to see her face, not to scream at her, not to catch her in the act. Just to look at her. The way you look at something that used to mean everything, until it didn't. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was there. His wasn't, but that didn't mean anything. He was smarter than that. She probably told him to leave early. Cover her tracks. She was always good at cleaning up her messes. But not this time. I unlocked the door and stepped into the house. She was in the kitchen, wearing one of my old sweatshirts like nothing had happened. She turned fast, startled. Her smile was immediate, too fast. Too big. Hey, I didn't think you'd be home until late tomorrow. Plans change. I dropped my bag by the door. She walked over like she was going to hug me, and I just raised my hand slightly, not in anger. Just enough. She stopped. The silence between us was thicker than anything I'd felt in years. You okay? She asked, looking genuinely confused. Or pretending to be. I nodded slowly. You cleaned the living room. She blinked. What? I said. You cleaned the living room. Vacuumed. Washed the blanket on the couch. Bleached the wine glasses. Her mouth opened, just slightly. Yeah, I like to clean when you're away. You know that. I stepped closer. What else did you clean, Emily? She frowned. What is this? Why are you acting like? No, I know about him. I know about the hotel. The texts. The gym. I know about this weekend. And there it was. The first crack in her. Her eyes darted, just slightly, and she took a half step back like I'd struck her. But I hadn't moved. Who told you? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because the question told me everything I needed to know. Wrong question, I said. It should have been, how long have you known? Or, what did I miss? But you're already trying to figure out who exposed you. Because that's how your mind works. Always calculating, always shifting blame. I saw it, all of it. You brought him into our home. Tears welled in her eyes instantly, but I didn't trust them. I'd seen her cry before. At her mom's funeral, at the hospital when my dad passed, at our wedding. I knew what real tears looked like. These weren't those. You went through my phone? She said, turning defensive. You spied on me? I protected myself, I said flatly. I protected my sanity. You made me feel crazy for months. You lied with a straight face, every day. And I stayed quiet. I gave you space. I trusted you. That's what I did. She went quiet. Her breathing changed. That shallow panic breath that always gave her away. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said eventually. I nodded. But you let it happen. Again. And again. She stepped forward, reaching for me. Please just talk to me. I made a mistake. I was lost. I don't know why I did it. I don't care why anymore. That stopped her cold. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt peace. I've already spoken to a lawyer, I continued. The house is mine. Your name was never on the deed. You'll have time to move out, and I won't make it ugly if you don't. But if you try to twist this, or lie to anyone about what happened, I'll release everything. The footage, the messages, all of it. Her jaw dropped. You recorded me? In my house? Yeah, I did. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. And maybe she didn't, because I wasn't the man who begged, or pleaded, or hoped she'd come back to me. I was done. She broke into sobs then, loud, messy, theatrical sobs. Collapsed into a chair and covered her face. I watched her for a second, not out of cruelty, just to remind myself. This is who she chose to be. Then I walked upstairs, not to pack, not to scream into a pillow, but to sleep, in our bed, alone, and free. The first few days after she left were too quiet, not peaceful, not freeing, just hollow. It was strange. I had fought so hard for that silence, planned for it, even, and now that I had it, it felt like walking into a house where someone just died. You notice the absence more than the peace. She moved out the following Friday. Took her clothes, her makeup, a few boxes of books and decorations I never cared about. Left the framed photos on the wall, probably because she didn't want to look at them either. She asked if I wanted to talk before she left. I didn't. She cried anyway, standing in the doorway with one hand on the handle like she expected me to stop her. I didn't move. I just watched her walk away. No shouting, no dramatic goodbye. She didn't even close the door all the way. That night, I drank whiskey out of a coffee mug and watched the front porch light flicker for 3 hours straight. Didn't even bother fixing it. Let it flicker. Let it burn itself out. The hardest part came after, not from her, but from everyone else. Her sister called me 2 days later. Said she heard something happened. I didn't give her details. Just said Emily and I were separating. She asked me if I was okay. I lied. My mom called next. Then a couple of our mutual friends, or I guess former mutual friends. Everyone wanted to check in. Everyone wanted the version they could digest. I didn't tell anyone about the camera, about the tracker, about the texts. I wasn't protecting her. I was protecting me. I didn't want this story to turn into gossip. It wasn't entertainment. It was my life. People keep asking if I miss her. I don't. I miss before. I miss the version of her I thought I married. I miss the way she used to lay her head on my chest at night and fall asleep in 30 seconds flat. I miss the sound of her reading a grocery list out loud. I miss the idea of us. But her? No. That part's gone. I've been going on walks lately. Not for fitness. Just to move. I walk the same loop around the neighborhood, past the little diner where we used to go on Sundays. I always order the same thing. Black coffee, eggs over medium, no toast. It's a routine. Feels safe. Last Sunday, I saw a couple about our age sitting 2 booths over, She was laughing. He looked at her like she was the most fascinating thing in the world. I didn't feel jealous, just distant, like I was watching something I used to believe in. It hit me then. It's not just the marriage that ends. It's the version of yourself you built around it. You lose her, yeah. But you also lose him. The husband you thought you were. The man who believed in forever. The guy who brought home flowers just because. I'm not him anymore. But maybe that's okay. Maybe this pain is a kind of clearing. Maybe it's not the end of who I am. Just the end of who I was willing to be for someone who didn't deserve it. It's been 3 months since she walked out of the house with her last box. You'd be surprised how fast someone can vanish from a life they helped build for nearly a decade. Her coffee mug is still in the back of the cupboard. I find one of her bobby pins in the bathroom every couple weeks. Her perfume is long gone, though. That smell disappeared faster than her apology. She hasn't tried to come back. Not once. There were no late-night texts. No, I miss you, or I made a mistake. She didn't even fight for us. She let me walk away, or maybe she just assumed I never would in the first place. And in a way, that was the final betrayal. It's strange. I used to lie awake imagining what I'd say to her if I got the chance. All the anger, all the questions, all the things I should have said when I first found out. But now, if she walked through that door, I don't think I'd say a thing. Not because I'm holding back, but because she already knows. She knows what she broke. She knows who she turned me into. She knows what she lost. That's her burden now, not mine. People always ask if I'll ever be able to forgive her. And I think they're expecting some noble answer, something about healing and letting go. But the truth is, I don't think she deserves forgiveness. And I don't owe it to her. What I owe is to myself, and maybe to the next person I let into my life. I owe them someone honest. Someone grounded. Someone who's been through hell and came back smarter. Not colder, not bitter, just clearer. I don't carry hate for her anymore. That part passed. But I'll never see her as the woman I once loved. That version of her. The one who used to sing along to the radio and squeeze my hand under the table at restaurants. She died the second she let someone else into our bed and smiled like it was nothing. The other day, I ran into Eric. Yeah, him. He was at a gas station about 2 miles from the house. Wearing gym clothes, earbuds in, filling up his tank like he hadn't helped wreck a marriage. He didn't see me at first. But when he did, he looked scared. Like he thought I'd come at him. Maybe break his jaw. I didn't. I just looked at him. And for the first time in this whole damn story, he was the one who couldn't hold my gaze. That was enough. He turned, got in his car, and drove off without making eye contact again. When I got home that night, I opened a cold beer, stood in the backyard, and watched the sun go down through the trees. There was no dramatic sense of peace. No sweeping orchestral moment, just a man standing in his own yard, alone, breathing free air. And that's the ending. No reconciliation, no revenge, just me, still standing, still moving forward, and finally, done looking back.